Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm here with another repartnering story. Okay, so I'm these days I have to be a little more specific. I started out the interviews with women who had gotten remarried. So it's like what rolls off the tongue is remarriage, but now I've had many guests who are not remarried, who are repartnered. So let's just say we're here with another Dating After Divorce story. And I have a very special guest, a friend and colleague, Sarah Yost, in the Zoom room with me today. Sarah is a master certified life coach. She specializes in anxiety freedom, and she developed a technique called emotional reprocessing to rewire your experience of stressful events, both today and from your past. So very exciting. Welcome, Sarah. Please tell the listeners who you are and what you do. Tell us a little bit about this emotional reprocessing thing. I'm very curious.
Okay. So I am endlessly fascinated with emotions and their role in our experience. And, you know, I'm sure we'll delve into this, when I think about really my entire experience of relationships with men and everybody else, but especially with men, I just can see how my emotions and my fear of especially rejection have shaped all of my experiences. And so emotional reprocessing, what that does is it allows you to take your emotions and not just process them so they go away, but to really get all of the information that you need out of them and really change your experience, just completely rewire your emotions around an experience.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because they keep coming back. So
right.
You can't just be like, I'm done with this emotion now.
Right. One and done. I thought I did this. I already talked about this in therapy. I already cut the cords. Why is it still here? Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm sure you'll tell us a lot more about how you've used that in your own experience. But of course, my listeners are mostly divorced women who are dating after divorce, women who are remarried after divorce or repartnered after divorce. So let's hear your story. Let's start with your marriage and divorce. Like, what do you think led to the nature of your first marriage and to the divorce?
Okay. I met my husband, my ex-husband, when I was 20 years old, which is ridiculous. And if you've been around 20-year-olds lately, they're, delightful humans, but not really in a place to make that kind of decision. And so anyway, I met my husband when I was 20, married at 23. And, the way that I think about it is he was a great partner for me at the time. He was a good boyfriend, and he should have been a boyfriend. And that relationship should have ended. So it's not that I should have never been with him, but I shouldn't have. It's like we don't like the idea of when I was 23, the idea of just ending a relationship or completing a relationship was not something that I even considered. You either break up or you get married. And I didn't want to break up, so it was time to get married. So anyway, that's a lot of why I got married. And so that didn't work.
What was your thinking? I know, like that. I mean, that, and I know how many times I've thought about that in my own relationships. Like, that didn't work out. That was not a good idea.
So we will do that again. So it was fine. We we were married, and we had he has a daughter who's still mine. She's 30. We're going to celebrate her 31st birthday tonight, actually. Anyway, so we have her, and then he and I had 2 other kids, and so we were together for 19 years. And I really wanted to
stay married for 19 years.
Well, 16. So 16. We dated for 3, and then got married, and then we're together, and then married for about 16.
So you were 36 when you got divorced.
Yeah. Well,
or ish.
30, like 39. Yeah, 39.
39.
So I was approaching 40.
Yeah. What was the difference between you at 39 and you 20? That's a gigantic leap in growth and maturity.
Yeah. Well, what I found with him was, I was in, he and I met in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so we met on a foundation of like growth and personal development. And so I've been in it for a long time. And So I was always in our marriage, this, I am answering your question, but if I forget to bring it home, help me out here. But I, I learned how, even though I wasn't particularly happy with him, I learned how to not be mad at him all the time. And I just learned how to differentiate. Like, this is his, this is mine. And I created a pretty great life for myself outside of my relationship with him. And, by the time I was 39, I was pretty great. I mean, I was pretty great at 20, but I was like even more great at 39. And I was pretty great. I wanted out of that marriage for a long time, but I didn't ever have a good enough reason. And I thought I had to have a good reason. And so I did a lot of what I know is really common. I don't know how much you talk about it with your clients, but I fantasized about his death. I didn't want to kill him. I just like a
car accident on the way home.
Just like a quick one, and it wasn't like from anger. It was just more like practical. Like, it'd just be easier for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So I did a lot of that, and and for a while I wished that he would hit me or do something, like give me a good enough reason, which he never did. And when I finally decided to leave, it was I just thought, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And I didn't know for 20 years that was a good enough reason not to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. So you finally give yourself permission.
Yeah.
To not be there anymore.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, and that's so common. Like, when you say good enough reason, I actually experience that with my clients when they're dating. They will meet a guy, he's nice, he's respectful, he's not a jerk, he's got a good job, he's stable. And they're like, I should like him. My ex-husband was a narcissistic, sociopathic, evil person. What is wrong with me that I don't like this nice man sitting across the dinner table from me?
Yeah.
They think they don't have permission to be like, he's nice and he's good, but he's not the one I'm looking for, or the one that I want to spend the next 40 years with.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is socialization. Women are socialized, like, your purpose is this relationship. So you don't get to say you don't want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Give me a good reason.
Yeah. Why? Did he hit you? And what's hilarious is I would hear stories about, he did hit you? Well, then you should work on therapy. You should go to therapy. He might change. I'm like, wait, I have the good reason. Why can't I still leave? Yeah.
Yeah, because it's never the reason.
It's never the reason. Yeah. And so after the divorce, were you like, hey, I want to do this again, I'm looking for a new partner? What were your thoughts?
Okay, so after the divorce, I thought, I don't ever want to be in a monogamous relationship again. I do not want a stepfather for my children, and I am ready to date. And then I did what a lot of divorced people do. I just dated like crazy. And 2 months after my ex-husband moved out of my house, I met a new guy. He lived in Montana. I live in Kansas. He lived in Montana. We had an epic first date, and within 8 hours decided that he would go home to Montana, get his stuff, and move back to Wichita. And I knew that was a questionable choice, but I was very clear that that's what I wanted to do, and did it. And it was as toxic as it sounds. That lasted about 3, those kinds of, hot and heavy beginnings usually don't end well. And it was really toxic. And so that was my next relationship. It was monogamous. He was a stepfather. He was all the things that I said I didn't want. But he also he scratched all the itches, all the things I'd been hungry for. So when my ex-husband moved out, he literally left holes in the wall, not like that he had punched, but just the house was in severe disrepair. It was a mess. It was ugly. There were holes. Like, I needed a handyman. And so this guy came in and he fixed it all. He literally fixed my house. He organized my house. He fixed me. He put me back. It was intoxicating. He was everything my ex-husband was not, and I could not give that up.
Yeah, and that's so powerful. It's such an illustration of the template for the new relationship being the old relationship.
Just the exact opposite. And he called me a stupid bitch, not the first date, but the first day when he moved back, when we were unloading, he called me a name. I am not a woman who is called names. That's not the way I am in the world. And I just, like, I remember the moment where I made a decision. I just went, that didn't happen. And I returned back to, it's like, I was so hungry for all the things that he did that I allowed a lot of pretty terrible behavior.
Yeah. Some of my clients, like when we talk about this situation, they'll be like, okay, I'll ask them for we work on like a template for the person that they're looking for, which helps define how the dating journey, how we strategize their dating journey. And it will literally be a list that's like everything that's the opposite of their ex. And I'm like, here's what's happening. Your brain is thinking about your ex. The whole time you're writing this list, it's thinking about your ex. And even if it doesn't find the same exact person as your ex, it's going to find something like him.
Yes. Or the exact opposite,
which is also
from
toxic.
That same fear state, which is also toxic from that same
yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. So how did you navigate that? Like, obviously you've extricated yourself.
It really hurt me. It really destabilized me. So here's what I remember. And I remember knowing this was not good. Like, we literally could not be apart long enough to take a shower. And not because we were so like, couldn't keep our hands off each other. We couldn't stay away from each other. Literally, like, needed to be in each other's presence. I remember that when he would hug me, I would, like, my whole body would relax. And I will tell you, it's interesting. I've thought about this a lot because that's also my experience with my current partner. But I'm able to find that state without my current partner. And I was never able to find that state without my prior partner. And that's a huge difference. And so I remember, like, giving him a hug, feeling all of the chemicals released in my body and thinking to myself, oh, this isn't going to end well. Like, it felt like addiction.
Yeah.
And I was in. I was like, so what was your question? How did I get out of that? Well, not until I had to. Like, not until I just could not. I was so destabilized and so dysregulated. I was non-functional. I was incredibly erratic. My emotions were all over the place. I was incredibly sensitive. I could not make a living, I was a coach. I'd been a coach. I have been a coach for 12 years. And so this was about 5 years ago. So I had that training and I just finally, I couldn't, there's that, you can't live with him, can't live without him. Well, it was going to be easier to live without him than it was to live with him. And he had to go. So,
were you working on yourself at all during that period? Like, you knew you had the training. Were you able to, like, pull on those tools during that time?
Not really, because I was in such a huge trauma bond response situation that the tools that I had up to that point were inadequate. And what they did was they made it worse. And that experience of lots of things that had worked with a fairly healthy person like myself did not work when I was in that constant trauma state. And what that did was completely transform the way that I coach today. And it informed this process that I found emotional reprocessing therapy. So, tell
us a little bit more about that, like the difference, like, between what the tools that you had then and how they worked, and then, like, what you did later. Because I think this is really important because I think sometimes people wonder, well, what's the big deal about coaching, or what's the big deal about therapy? or, well, it's just the dating apps. Why do I need a coach?
Yeah.
Why, like, then it's such a different experience when you, for me, a lot of my work has been raising my self-awareness. Just my
Right.
awareness of what's happening inside my brain
Yes.
has just been magical. So could you talk a little bit more about how you work through that differently before and
Yeah,
after?
absolutely. And I just want to say, you don't need a coach. If you're able to find a partner with no stress, you don't need a coach. A coach is just going to make your life easier. So there's that answer for you. But second of all, yeah, so what I did before was I only worked with my thoughts, because I knew that my thoughts were creating my reality. I knew that my thoughts were creating my feelings. But my assumption was that if I was having a thought, there was something wrong with me and I needed to change the thought.
Yeah.
And an assumption that I have now is every single thought, every single emotion, and every single behavior makes sense, even if we don't understand it in the moment. The way I made sense of it 5 years ago was, I need to change this. Therefore, if I'm the cause of this experience, then I'm the problem. Therefore, I'm a problem. Therefore, I need to be fixed.
Right.
And now I do operate under the same assumption, which is I'm responsible for this result, and whatever I'm doing makes sense, even if I don't know what is happening.
Yeah, like the brain is doing what it's supposed to be doing in
100%.
this particular moment, in this particular situation.
100%.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So now what I know, when I look back, what was happening was he became my attachment figure. And then he destabilized me, probably not intentionally. Probably he was just sick and lacking awareness. I can't vilify him, and won't. I can't go there inside of myself, which was really difficult. I bet a lot of your listeners grapple with that. It's like really difficult when there's this problem of like, wait, I actually was the victim here, but I don't want to be a victim. It feels powerless to be a victim. It feels like I can't keep this from happening again if I'm a victim. I don't believe in being a victim. I want to get out of it. It's like, but factually, you were the one on the ground, actually. Like factually, if we take all the stories, like you were anyway, so it's a difficult thing to grapple with. So what I know was happening is that he became my attachment figure, and he became the only way that I felt good was if I was plugged into his nervous system. And I would literally, if he was mad at me or if he left the room, I would feel I was bereft. I mean, bereft. And this makes a lot of sense when you look at attachment science and when you look at the nervous system and you look at trauma, but I didn't know that. I just thought I was crazy and weak. And it was such a huge identity shift, because this is not who I was. I found my way in a not happy, not terrible, not great marriage, but I found a way to be just a pretty cool lady. I mean, like, and here I was like keening when this man was mad at me like a child. He really infantilized me in many emotional ways that I didn't understand. And his belief was, and this is what was completely reinforced, his belief was that I couldn't function without him. And when we broke up, one of the things he said to me, what he said out loud was, "How are you going to survive without me?" And he said that in a way that I know it was out of concern, because he really believed it. He didn't mean you're an idiot. He meant literally, you can't survive without me. What are we going to do? And that was his belief system, and that became my belief system. So you can see why I had some problems.
Right.
So, so under those assumptions and in the constant trauma response, cognitive tools don't make any sense. Cognitive tools don't make any sense. The only thing that has to happen is coming out of that trauma distortion. And until you're out of the trauma distortion, you can't do anything.
Yeah, you have to get out of, I guess I call that like survival mode, because I experienced that.
Yes.
Fight or flight, freeze or fawn or whatever. These are all just, I would say, these are all just models for something that we're experiencing. There are many models that attempt to explain the experience. But when you're in that place, you're literally, fighting for your life. Your brain is literally fighting to survive in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was my only survival mechanism. He was the only connection, literally the only time I felt good. At some point, we would even joke because we both knew 4 inches away was our optimal distance. If we kissed, that was triggering. So not 2 inches away or 1 inch or no inch, and not 10 inches away. But literally when we were 4 inches away was the only time that we both felt like sane, which really tells you something about the state of really both of our nervous systems.
Yeah. And I was going to ask that in terms of like, was your nervous system in that state because of the divorce? Had it always been in that state? Like,
no, this guy put me there. This guy, that I had never and have never been like that in my life. That was a traumatizing. First of all, trauma happens constantly. Trauma is just any time an emotion's not expressed and moved through you. But second of all, traumatic things often happen as adults, not just as children.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I know there are a lot of models for this description of trauma bonding. Some people refer to it as narcissistic abuse, depending on what they're experiencing. There's all kinds of models for it. But yes, that there can be a person that you can meet. You're a fully functioning adult. You're okay. You're good.
Yes.
You meet a particular kind of person. That changes you.
It changed me. Because he scratched an itch I didn't know I had. And what I've seen since then is, and I'll tell you the truth is that I come to that honestly. I was tender around connection anyway. Most people with ADHD or sensitive systems are particularly dysregulated around the issue of connection or rejection. There's a thing called RSD that some people may know. So I had that already, and but I managed it and was upright, and probably that's a lot of why I stayed in my marriage also, as I didn't want to disconnect and I didn't want him to feel that way, and a lot of that went into that, but I wasn't destabilized to that level. So I did have the makings of that situation, but he took it and just, the way that we interacted with each other amplified it. And what I have seen is, and I bet you have too, is a lot of really strong women have one toxic relationship. I don't know if it's just like a rite of passage or what it is, but many of us,
yes,
like even Amy Schumer, like she wrote about it in her memoir, and I can't tell you how helpful that was for me, because I find Amy Schumer to be pretty cool, and for her to describe being destabilized and infantilized in that way, it just it helps.
Yeah. 100%. And it's one of the reasons why we're telling these stories. Right. Like everyone who comes, all of my guests and my clients are all amazing.
Yes.
Women who are doing amazing things in the world. All of them. Like some of them are CEOs of private equity firms. Some of them are doctors. Many of them are coaches, and they have that story. And yes, it's not, I don't know that it's so much a rite of passage as a set of thinking, a set of thoughts that does help us shine in the ways that we do shine.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I have one theory is that the fact that we shine in those ways is attractive to those types of people. So we do become a little bit of a target often because it's like, they want that. Many of them want to.
Who wouldn't?
Or they feel like they deserve a woman who shows up that way in the world. So that's one thing. So you're a little bit of a target. And then second, we have a set of thoughts that make us think we can handle anything.
Yes.
Or that things should be hard, or that we need a challenge, or we need to fix, like all the things. You just go down the list of all those thoughts, and we're a sitting duck for that type of.
And then if you go, but the only problem I have is my thoughts. Well, then let me just keep this guy and manage
and change my thoughts. Oh, yes. No,
I so just change my thoughts like magic and get you. I'm in.
Yeah.
Let me just not care that you call me a stupid bitch. I can get there. I can get a lot of places. I can get there. And then I can get you.
And then we have evidence that we've gotten to so many places. that we've made a
Great
lot of
point.
money, that we're successful, that we've overcome a shitty childhood. We have
Yes.
so much evidence about what we could do. It just comes together.
It's a lot of hubris, isn't it? Like,
yeah. Yes. I love that you use that word, because that's what I believe our confidence in some of these situations turns into, I can do this. I can handle this.
Sure. I've handled worse.
Yeah, as though we were supposed to handle things like that.
Right.
Like,
I don't have a good reason not to.
right.
That one.
Yeah. And this is where, of course, all the self-love and self-compassion and, caring for ourselves and caring for our little girl, all of that comes in. And this is all things that I had to learn after the fact. A lot of my clients have to learn that after the fact. So yeah, you're completely right. We all, most of us have this.
Many, yeah. So I extricated myself from him. I was completely non-functional. I could not coach. I was erratic. I was upside down. Nothing that had worked before worked anymore. Like, literally nothing worked. And I did yard work for $25 an hour in order to just keep some food in the house, and screamed at my kids because I couldn't tolerate anything, and then felt terrible. So I instituted connection with them in the morning and night, because I felt like whatever damage I'm doing during the day, if we have at least 1 or 2 connection points, maybe that will undo it, which was one of my smarter moves, actually. It's like I knew that I couldn't not scream, and I knew that that was not okay, and I had no control over it. And so I just did what I could to mitigate the damage. And that was one of the best things that I did for all of us, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And that speaks to a lot of, I think, sometimes some of the hubris of women who are divorced is, I have seen a lot of them over-index on trying to make the kids okay, not realizing that, no, you need to be okay. If you do what you need for you to be okay, they will be okay. There's going to be that messy middle in the messy period in the middle where you're working on you being okay, that will impact them. However, the solution is for you to be okay.
100%.
Yeah. That's very real. And I know yours wasn't during a divorce. Well, kind of a divorce, because
Well, my divorce wasn't traumatic. I spent so much time getting ready for a divorce and being okay with divorce and loving him anyway. And it was pretty chill when he left. I was just like glad he was gone and ready to do the next thing. And then this next relationship is the one that's the one that really kicked my ass.
Right. And here's the thing. This is what I always say. It's like the divorce itself is not traumatic. Divorce in itself is literally just, it's a process. It's a transaction. It's a separating of assets and like a parenting plan and all the things. What makes it traumatic is the human or the humans that are involved. That's always the case, because then people say, well, don't divorce, it's going to impact your kids. I'm like, no. If this human, like in my case, my ex who had all kinds of things going on, this human will always create a traumatic experience for the people around him.
Oh, yeah.
Whether we're in the marriage or we're in a divorce, and even after the divorce. It's just the nature of that situation. So how do I want to handle that? It's not and so with your second relationship, the fact that it was not a marriage did not change the fact that it was traumatic.
Exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
And I was so dependent on him, and I wasn't dependent on my husband. And so, to relearn my identity, and anyway, just a million things. So then I left him, and then I hadn't had enough sex in years. I didn't have as much sex as I wanted in my marriage. I didn't have as much sex with him as I wanted, like hardly any. And I love sex. I value it. It's really important to me. And so then when I left, when I left him, then I started dating again. And 10 days after he moved out, I met my current partner, which was terrible timing. I was just looking to bang. Like on my Bumble, I met him on Bumble. On my Bumble profile, it was like, I'm just looking to bang. I wasn't more nuanced than that, but I did have more words than that. It wasn't just like just a sex profile, but it was clear, like I'm not here for a relationship. You know?
Right. You asked for what you wanted. You're like, this is what I want. Yeah.
And met him literally 10 days later, and then cried on our first date because I liked him. And I was like, I do not want to be in a relationship. I do know. I was married 2 months later, got with this guy. 10 days later, like I need a break. I need to get laid, but I also don't want to be in a relationship. So I cried because I liked him, and I wasn't, we still laugh about it. Like, I wasn't trying to like you. Stop.
Did you tell him that like,
yes,
I'm not here for a relationship, but I like you?
Yeah, I said that's why I'm crying. I'm crying like, I really need to like you. Stop.
Oh my gosh.
And the way that he responded to my tears was perfect, and the way he has always responded to my tears. And I mean, I feel like crying now. Like, what he did was he smiled and he leaned in, and he did nothing to change me, nothing to tell me I was wrong, and nothing to tell me I was right. He just smiled bigger and leaned in a little bit. Oh, God, I love this man.
Yeah.
So what we did was we dated for maybe 6 months or so with like a weekly sex date. It was perfect because then I got the sex. We weren't in relationship. And I just got to like meet a nice person and spend time with them in a very like controlled way. Like we didn't leave the house together. We didn't interact with other people. That's not what we were doing. So then I really got that experience of being on my own and being with my kids and being in my own rhythm and not compromising myself and rebuilding and learning how to work again and coming back online. And one of the thoughts I had at that time too was, if you're attracted to me in this place, then there's probably something wrong with you. Not from a like, I don't know. It just seemed like, it still seems like a practical thing. Like, I am so screwed up right now that if you like me, probably you're kind of sick. But what I think is actually true is that he saw beyond that, and that's what he was attracted to. He saw who I really am. He didn't see me as the trauma woman. He saw me as who I really am. And so
and did that help you see you as you really are? Because even the statement, I'm that screwed up, is questionable, because like, well, the things that have happened to you are kind of a thing that happens to a lot of people. So
I didn't know that though. Or I maybe sort of like knew that people sometimes broke up. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. Now I do, but I didn't. I just knew like, this is really weird. And I Googled, like, I would have like 1 or 2 days, maybe a month when my brain was functional. And I went to work during that time. Like I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And so I don't know how to fix it. And I would go to Barnes and Noble. I'd get a stack of like every brain book just to like, what is this? And now I know what it is. It was a dysregulated nervous system. It was a completely distorted trauma response. But I didn't know that. I didn't know what to Google. I didn't know what book to pick up. My brain worked for like 36 hours a month. I would use it to try to fix myself. And then when my brain would go offline, I would just kind of do what was in front of me. It was, it was wild.
So how long have you and your partner been together now?
About 4.5 years.
Wow, for someone who didn't want to be in a relationship.
I know. And Also, and like, here's the thing too, when you think, this is for your people who have specific lists of what they think. So here's what I did is every time I was mad at my ex-husband, every time I was mad at my ex-boyfriend, I would say in anger, I just want somebody who, I just want somebody who, I just want somebody who. And in doing that, I was making my list of really my perfect partner. And so I met this guy, my partner, my current partner, and the state of our relationship is that we have separate households. I have my kids full time, and he lives 276 steps away. And we see each other. We are life partners. He does not parent my children, although occasionally he gives them rides. And it is perfect. It is perfect. Yes. So he was 49 when I met him, never married, no kids. And I thought, clearly not relationship material. Like I wasn't here for a relationship this second, but I love to be partnered. I love to be partnered, and I knew I would want to be partnered again, but I'm not going to be partnered with some 50-year-old like white guy who has never been married. Like, that is a red flag if I've ever seen one, right? And his house is very tidy, and I'm not like, this is not gonna, he's a very nice guy for now, but this is not gonna work out. And I was wrong. Everything that I ever said in anger that I wanted is really everything that he is, down to, like, here, you want to hear something really weird about manifestation? So Kevin Bacon, so Footloose was my formative movie. And when I look at all of the themes that play in that movie, I feel like, yeah, that's pretty much the life of Sarah Yost. And, and Kevin Bacon, the way that he looks and the way he acts in that movie has been the blueprint for every attraction I've ever had, most attractions I've ever had. And my current partner, his body, his face, his mannerisms are like almost exactly Kevin Bacon. And that Kevin Bacon does a lot of like weird horror movies, and they're kind of creepy, but from Footloose. So like my formative, and that's who I found. So anyway.
Isn't that fascinating? Like I teach my clients to examine their emotional imprint, right? Because I'm like, there is an imprint, especially if you keep meeting the same kind of guy, or if you can see the kind. I'm like, there is an imprint, and it doesn't mean you have to change it. No. You just have to look at ways that it's expressing itself in ways that are not serving you. Yeah. So, like for my sisters and I, we like a guy with a beard. Like, it's just a thing. Like, if you look at our uncles, or like, but we're like, okay, so not just any guy with a beard. The beard is the icing on the cake. You gotta look below the beard.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And then like one time I had this weird experience. This is so like taboo and weird, but there was this guy, he was like 80 and maybe in a wheelchair, and I felt a zing. We were at Hobby Lobby, and I was like, what? Because when I look at anything, I'm not into 80-year-olds. He was with his wife. Like, there was nothing actually about him that was appealing. But when I sat with that zing, I was like, ooh, that's weird, Sarah. What's going on? He had that way, that energy. He had that way about him that I'm attracted to. I was like, wow, it doesn't.
Yes. This is such a great conversation, because I have this conversation with my clients about attraction.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think I teach in my programs that I have not seen taught anywhere else is this ability to sit with what you're attracted to and what you're not attracted to. Because they'll be like, oh, I'm just not attracted to him. And I'm like, I'm not telling you to go out with him, but I want you to learn about yourself by sitting with why you're not attracted to him.
Yeah. What exactly?
What is it? Because that is information that you need for this journey.
That's right.
To finding your partner, you need to know what's happening inside of you, why your brain is saying no to some things and saying yes to some things, so that you can change what you want to change, because you can change it, and keep what you want to keep.
Yeah.
It is so important. And they're like, well, I just want chemistry. And it's like chemistry is something that just kind of falls out of the sky. And when they meet the right person, there'll be chemistry. I'm like, no, you can shorten your distance to the right partner if you know what chemistry means to you in particular.
Yes. And like and also, people who have experience with narcissism or with these dynamics, there's a lot of chemistry happening.
There is.
And it's also a huge turn on. And that doesn't mean, it's like, which chemistry do we want more of?
Yes.
Like, is it, when somebody withdraws and you have a lack of regulation or oxytocin, then they give it back to you and you feel a flooding. That, like, let's not normalize that. The big feelings you have after they took it from you, that's not love.
Yeah.
That's not attraction, and that's not passion. That's addiction.
That's and like I said, it's literally chemistry, because hormones and what's the word, chemicals are doing things in your body because of the toxic behavior.
Yes.
The rushing, the highs and the lows are coming. And so it feels like chemistry, or sometimes we name it chemistry or sexual attraction. But what if you could discover sexual attraction that was in a healthy container?
Yes.
Yeah. And if you've never experienced it, sometimes it feels like it doesn't exist.
Yes. And, what I remember, and even probably saying to my partner, like, I am really afraid, because my only experience, like, I had a relationship where I wasn't crazy about him and I knew how to do that. And then I had a relationship where I was crazy about him. And that feels really dangerous to me. And so the idea of, watching myself fall for my current partner, it felt very dangerous. It's like, I don't know what to trust. Can I trust myself? What is it like to even be crazy about somebody and have that be okay? It seems like it'd be okay to be crazy about somebody, but there's a way to be crazy about somebody that's certainly not okay. And I don't want that again. It just felt, the whole thing just felt dangerous.
And I think for a lot of women, maybe because you're a coach, you were like, oh, there's a way to do this. For a lot of women, they actually feel like it's 1 or 0. It's mutually exclusive.
Yes. Yeah.
They can either have a really good guy that they enjoy and no sexual chemistry, or this other bad boy situation with chemistry. But it's not true.
That's the only way I know how to be turned on. And so that must be the only way there is to be turned on. Well,
there are others. There are a lot of other ways. So good. Oh my God, Sarah, this has been such an exciting conversation. I don't want it to end. Is there anything about in your story that, like, we haven't touched on? Because we kind of did a loose timeline, but I know there are probably things you want to share with divorced women, or something about your story that I haven't asked, but you're like, oh my God, this would be so good to share. Please just feel free to share it.
Okay. I'll say, so here's the thing that I found with my current partner is we're incredibly well suited to each other. And what that means is we don't have to work very hard to be in relationship with each other, which is really nice. And down to we have similar paces when we walk. So we don't have to negotiate our walking pace. Down to we like to approach restaurants in the same way. So there's no negotiation there. Down to we like to sleep at the same time, get up at the same time. Not exactly, but close enough that there's no negotiation. Not that negotiation is a problem, but I do want to say that when there's not any, it's a lot of stuff you don't have to manage. That said, because we're very well suited to each other, we were old when we met each other. We're both kind and thoughtful humans. And so what also happened is that we didn't have any ability, because we didn't have a fight or disagreement for a year or so. We didn't have any ability to disagree or have fights. We didn't have any skill between us to bicker. We still don't bicker like some people do. And I don't think bickering is always a problem. It's just not a thing we do because it's just not the way we relate to each other. What that means is that we really had to learn how to have conflict, and we had to learn how to have conflict and grow. Like, my belief is, and he is learning, his body is learning that when we have conflict, we're always stronger on the other side. We always know each other better, and we always find just a little bit more intimacy and a little more way to love each other. And I super appreciate that. So we don't I don't avoid conflict, and am grateful for the ability to do it. And the thing that we had to learn, that I teach all my clients, is the most important skill, I think, in relationship with people, and that is to differentiate between the two of you, which is difficult when you are interconnected, interdependent, living in the same household, sharing the bodily fluids and a bathroom, sleeping together, and your nervous systems are constantly regulating and co-regulating. That is real science, and you are responsible for your experience, and your partner is responsible for theirs, and you are two separate beings. And every time that collapses, you're going to have problems. And it looks like people pleasing. It looks like I don't want him to feel bad. It looks like, I don't want him to feel bad. It looks like compromising yourself. It looks like just going along to get along. And we do that because at that deep level, it's a difficult project to manage a nervous system that's constantly pinging off each other, and the knowledge that you're still two separate nervous systems.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and almost informs a reason to be repartnered after divorce. Because if you can navigate that, what a joy to have this co-regulating, separate but together, relationship, for as long as you choose. Like, why would we want to live without someone to help us regulate our nervous system? Like, that doesn't sound like something I want to do.
I love to plug in. No, I love to plug into my partner. It's like, and that's different. I plug into him. He doesn't ever do it for me, but I plug into him. I love having that.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. It's such a beautiful way to say it. Because I think sometimes after a divorce, it's like, well, why would I do that again? Why would I get married again? Why would I? And I'm like, well, first of all, we're not doing that again.
We aren't going to do that again. So
we're doing something different. But what a good reason to want to do something different is this celebration of our biology, this ability to love and be loved that's available to us.
To see and be seen and understand. And
for some people, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times. Like, I have some clients who, 2 or 3 divorces. I'm like, listen, if this is something you want, it is available. It's available. That's,
relationships aren't always forever. They don't have to be. I think that Chris and I are in it for the long haul, and so does he. And we both value autonomy so greatly that if one of us doesn't want to be here, we don't want the other one to be here.
Yeah, you wouldn't force the other person to be there because they said they would be there.
Nope.
Yeah. And I think that's such an abundant way of looking at it, because you also probably know that, hey, like, there's not just one human on the planet that I could love or that could love me. Like, there's like there's a lot of people on the planet.
There are.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Sarah, this has been such a good conversation. You have just brought such a fresh, new idea or perspective to divorce and to remarriage and repartnering and relationships after divorce, and just your take on emotions and co-regulating, I think, is just amazing. So I'm even like really curious now. I'm like, this is really cool. So could you please tell any of the listeners who would like to connect with you, to ask more about what you do, where they can find you on the internet? First, tell us again what you do, because I'm sure we all forgot. And then tell us where we can find you on the internet.
So I'm really an emotions coach. So on TikTok and IG, I'm your emotions coach. And what I focus on is freedom from anxiety, especially around rejection and connection. And then I do most of my stuff on Facebook, on my personal page, Sarah Yost, and my website's sarahyost.com. And I would love to hear from anybody who has a response to this podcast. Like, hit me up. I love to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of those links will be in the show notes. Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so exciting to connect with you again because we've connected before, which I thoroughly enjoyed when we hung out, and to have you come tell your story. So I really appreciate it. I know the listeners appreciate it. And I'm sure I will see you I think we're in the same like money program, but we'll talk about that after the
Okay.
after the podcast. Like I'm gonna start chatting now. But I'm just gonna want to thank everyone who is listening for your time and attention. I appreciate it so much, and we'll see you next time.